Mike had been driving Uber for 3 years, invisible behind the wheel, just another middle-aged guy trying to make ends meet. But when the young airman mentioned his deployment was getting moved up, when he casually referenced coordinates that Mike recognized, everything changed. Because those coordinates weren't just numbers. They were the last place Mike had flown before everything went wrong. Welcome to the Human Stories. Before we begin this powerful story of service, hidden past, and final mission, tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from today? And if you believe stories like this need to be remembered, hit that subscribe button and help us make sure they are. The streets of Washington. DC had a different rhythm after 11 p.m. The daytime. Rush gave way to the quiet pulse of nightlife. Mike Rodriguez loved these hours. Less traffic, calmer passengers, less conversation. His 2019 Toyota Camry was always clean. Interior simple, scent fresh, music playing softly. Mike's rules were basic. Arrive on time, drive safely, don't talk much, get good ratings. He'd followed the same routine for 3 years. 48 years old, medium height, grey hair cut short, always dressed neatly. Passengers called him driver or sir. Polite, reliable, quiet. No one asked about his story. He never told it. But Mike's car wasn't just an ordinary Uber. Mirrors perfectly adjusted. Routes memorized. Escape paths always calculated in case of danger. As if he was planning a mission every time. Because old habits died hard. That evening was like any other. At 10:30, he was ready to head home. One last call came in. Pick up from Reagan National Airport. Mike accepted. The airport was easy, good money, little chat. Mike Rodriguez's real story began in 1992. 18 years old, full of dreams, in love with the sky. He'd been accepted to the Air Force Academy, 4 years of education, 2 years of flight training. In 1998, he became an F-16 pilot. He flew for 12 years. In the Balkans, Iraq, Afghanistan, 347 mission flights, 0 losses, perfect record. He earned the call sign Ghost because he moved through airspace like he was invisible. In 2010, he was promoted, major rank, squadron leader. His future was bright. But that year, everything changed. A routine close air support mission in Kandahar, supporting ground troops. Coordinates were clear, target identified, but intel was wrong. Where Mike's bombs fell, there weren't soldiers, there were civilians. There were children. Technically, it wasn't Mike's fault. Intel error, command error, but Mike was the pilot. He pressed that button. He dropped those bombs. The investigation cleared him. But Mike couldn't clear himself. He couldn't sleep at night, couldn't fly during the day. In 2011, he took early retirement, 0 fanfare, 0 ceremony. Since that day, he hadn't looked at the sky. Reagan National Airport's departure terminal was quiet at 11:30 p.m. Mike parked at the pickup point, checked his phone. Passenger named David, 5-star rating, simple. A few minutes later, a young man approached, 25 to 26 years old, short hair, upright posture, civilian clothes, but obvious military bearing. Small duffel bag, boarding pass in hand. Mike, the young man said. Yes, David. Yes, sir. I need to get to Andrews Air Force Base. Mike nodded. Hop in. David got in the back seat, fastened his seatbelt. Mike set the GPS, but actually knew the route by heart. He'd been to Andrews AFB hundreds of times. In the old days, any rush, Mike, asked a little, David said. My deployment got moved up. Flight at 6 a.m. Mike's hand tightened on the steering wheel. Deployment. He didn't want to hear that word. Where to? He asked, even though he shouldn't. Bagram, David said. Afghanistan. Mike's world stopped. Bagram, Mike repeated. Yes, sir. Close air support operations. I'm an F-35 pilot. Mike's breath caught. F-35, next generation, the evolution of his F-16s. Your first deployment? No, sir. Second. First was routine. This time is different. Special Operations Support. Grid coordinates around 34.2456 N, 69.2654 E operations. Mike's hands trembled. He knew those coordinates. He knew them very well. 2010, where the accident happened. That exact area. David, Mike said carefully, how do you know those coordinates? David was surprised. From briefing, sir. Why do you ask? Mike didn't say anything, but 1,000 thoughts raced through his mind. That area, that operation, those coordinates. And now another young pilot was going to the same place. Mike drove quietly. The road to Andrews AFB was familiar, but this time it felt different. With each kilometer, the past grew heavier. Sir, David said, excuse me, but are you a pilot? Mike paused. Why do you ask? Your driving style, the way you navigate. You're not using GPS, but you know the route perfectly. And your reaction to those coordinates, ... Mike took a deep breath. For 3 years, he hadn't told anyone. But this was different. This kid was going to the same place, the same danger. Former pilot, he finally said. What aircraft? F-16. 12 years. David's voice got excited. F-16 Fighting Falcon. Legendary aircraft. Which squadron? 77th Fighter Squadron. Gamblers. David's eyes widened. Gamblers. Sir, you're from a legend squadron, one of the most elite units. Mike didn't smile. Once upon a time. Why did you quit, sir? Mike was silent for a long time. Then he spoke. In 2010, there was an incident in Kandahar. Kaz mission. Intel turned out wrong. Civilian casualties. David understood. In the military, everyone knew these kinds of stories. It wasn't your fault, sir. No, Mike said. But they were my bombs. The main gate of Andrews AFB came into view. Mike was driving slower than usual, trying to stretch time. David, he said, be very careful at those coordinates. Sir, 15 kilometers southeast of Bagram, mountainous area. Intel isn't always accurate. Ground truth can be different. David listened like he was taking notes. Yes, sir. And David, friendly fire should be your biggest fear, not the enemy. Your own wrong targets. I understand, sir. Mike approached the main gate. Security checkpoint. David's journey was ending. Sir, David said, can I ask you something? Shoot, that incident. Does it still affect you? Mike thought. Every day, but... Sir, how many lives did you save in those 12 years? How many successful missions? Mike had never thought about it. 347 missions. Maybe thousands of soldiers. That's one mistake. 346 successes, sir. Calculate the ratio. They stopped at the security checkpoint. David pulled out money, but Mike refused. No charge, Mike said. Sir, pilot-to-pilot courtesy. David smiled. Copy that, sir. As he got out of the car, David paused. Sir, what was your call sign? Mike hesitated. Ghost, ghost. David's face lit up. Sir, you're a legend. They tell your stories in flight school. Those precision strikes in the Balkans, those tactical maneuvers in Iraq, ... Mike was surprised. Really? Yes, sir. They say be like ghost, invisible, precise, professional. David extended his hand. Sir, honor to meet you. I'm David Hawk Mitchell. And I promise you, I'll be as careful at those coordinates as you would be. Mike shook hands. Safe flights, Hawk. Thank you, Ghost. After David left, Mike sat in his car. For the first time in 3 years, he felt something he hadn't felt. Purpose. That young pilot had shown him respect. He knew his stories. He called him a legend. Mike had always seen himself as a failure. But maybe... His phone rang. New ride request. But Mike didn't decline. He accepted, driving to the pickup point. For the first time in 3 years, he looked at the sky. Among those stars up there, his old friends were flying, and he wasn't ashamed anymore. From that night on, Mike's Uber driving changed. He listened to passengers more carefully. When he noticed military personnel, he asked about their stories. He gave advice. He became a mentor. 6 months later, Mike's Uber rating was 4.98. But more importantly, he had become the favorite driver for military personnel. Pentagon to Andrews, Quantico to BWI. Every trip a story, every trip advice. One night, Mike got a message from David. Ghost, Hawk here. Mission successful. I was careful at those coordinates. Verified intel, double-checked everything. 0 civilian casualties. Thank you for the guidance. Ready for next deployment. Mike smiled. It was his first real smile in 3 years. Then he made a decision. He wouldn't quit Uber driving, but he would do something else. He would start being a flight instructor, part-time, to teach young pilots real-world experience, because he had never really left. Just changed vehicles. Toyota instead of F-16. But the mission was the same. Bring other pilots home safely. A year later, Mike was working as a civilian flight instructor at Andrews AFB. 3 days a week Uber. 3 days instruction. Perfect. Balanced. David came to his graduation ceremony. Now he was a captain, had become a squadron leader. Ghost, he said, without that night, I might not have survived that deployment. Your advice saved lives. Mike nodded. You saved them. I just reminded you, sir. I want to ask you something. Shoot. You're doing flight instruction, but aren't you flying yourself? Mike paused. Indeed, for a year he'd been instructing, but he hadn't gotten in a plane himself. I'm not ready yet. Ghost, David said. I'm starting the test pilot program next month. I need a wingman. Experienced pilot. Someone I can trust. Would you be interested? Mike's heart raced. Wingman. Again, David. Sir, you carried that mistake for 11 years. How many pilots did you train this year? 50, 60. Each one returned home safely. Calculate the ratio. Mike smiled. His former student was giving him his own advice. When do we fly? Mike Rodriguez punished himself for 3 years. He carried the weight of one mistake. He ran from the sky, hid his pilot identity, but that night in the Uber, watch his hands. They might be pilot hands. This video is a fictional narrative created for emotional, inspirational, and entertainment purposes only. The characters, events, and situations portrayed are entirely imaginary or dramatized and should not be interpreted as factual representations of real-life individuals or events. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or real situations is purely coincidental. This content is not intended to offend, deceive, or cause harm. Viewer discretion is advised.